Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to win in business, the first thing you have to change isn't your logo, your pricing, or your product. It's your mind. You need to build a business mind, one that's not just built to survive but to scale, to lead, and to dominate. A business mind doesn't think small. It doesn't think, what do I get today? It asks, what am I building for tomorrow? The people who win, who truly create massive impact and income, aren't the ones who play safe. They're the ones who think bigger, take ownership, and refuse to let comfort make their decisions for them. Most people don't have a business problem, they have a thinking problem. They're still operating with an employee mindset while trying to lead like a CEO. That never works. You can't scale a vision with survival mode thinking. The business mind is built on strategy, not stress. It's focused on outcomes, not hours. If you're stuck doing everything, you don't own a business. You have an expensive job. And we're not here to play small with expensive jobs. We're here to build companies that create opportunities, change lives, and grow fast. A business mind is not ruled by emotions. Emotion might be part of your story, but it doesn't get to make your decisions. If your leadership is reactive, if you panic every time something dips, or hesitate every time someone gives you feedback, you're not leading. You're just managing fear. You need to know your numbers, your performance metrics, your goals. Your calendar should reflect your revenue targets. Your meetings should reflect your culture, and your hiring should reflect your vision. The more clarity you have in your data, the less chaos you have in your brain. Numbers don't lie, but your fear will every single day. Now, let's talk about urgency. You don't need to run your business like it's a sprint. That's burnout. But you do need to treat your time like it matters, because it does. A business mind sees 5, 10, 20 years ahead, but it makes moves like tomorrow's launch is make or break. It's a balance of patience and pressure. You hold the long view in your vision, but you move today like it's the only day you've got. That's how businesses grow. When leadership stops wasting time in indecision and starts moving with purpose. And if you want to scale anything, your sales, your team, your culture, you can't do it alone. Systems don't scale companies, people do. But the business mind understands it's not just about hiring warm bodies. It's about building the right team, the right culture, with the right leadership. You want A players. You have to be an A leader. You want ownership from your team. You need to create clarity and accountability. Your job is to develop your people, not just delegate to them. And if you're avoiding hard conversations because they feel uncomfortable, just know those conversations are the exact ones your business needs to grow. The most dangerous place to lead from is comfort. Comfort tells you the team is good enough, that the product is working fine, that you're already doing more than most, and that might be true, but you're not building for most, you're building for more. For greatness, for the version of your business that doesn't exist yet, and that version of you, the one who leads it, will not be created inside a comfort zone. A business mind embraces pressure, it gets obsessed with growth. It questions everything that feels like settling. It refuses to coast because it understands if you're not growing, you're dying. This isn't about hustle for hustle's sake. It's about building with intention. It's about learning to think like an owner, not just in your business, but in your life, owning your decisions, owning your numbers, owning your leadership. When you have a business mind, you don't look for someone to blame. You look for what you can build. You take radical responsibility, and you start to see that the only limit to your business is the one you refuse to outgrow in your thinking. So if you're here to scale, if you're here to lead, if you're here to win, start by changing how you think. Because the mind you lead with today will either expand or exhaust your business tomorrow. Train it like your success depends on it, because it does. Shifting from employee thinking to CEO thinking is one of the most pivotal mindset transformations an aspiring entrepreneur or leader can make. It is the line in the sand that separates those who participate in a business from those who own the responsibility of driving it forward. Employee thinking is task-focused, reactive, and often rooted in the question, what do I need to do today? CEO thinking is strategic, proactive, and rooted in the question, what is the business building toward, and how do I align every piece of it with that vision? It's not about being busy, it's about being intentional. It's not about checking boxes, it's about asking if the boxes even matter. Most people are conditioned to think like employees even when they step into entrepreneurship. They chase productivity like it's a badge of honor, mistaking busyness for effectiveness. But a CEO doesn't measure the value of a day by how many things they did. They measure it by what outcomes moved forward. A CEO isn't caught up in proving their effort. They are consumed with making an impact. This requires stepping out of the weeds and looking at the business from the top down. Where are we going? What's blocking us? What must be true for us to get there? And how do I make sure we're solving the right problems, not just the most urgent ones? Employee thinking is comfortable because it gives you a clear task list. It's satisfying to feel like you're getting things done. But the hard truth is that sometimes the things you're doing aren't the things that actually move the business forward. A CEO must constantly ask, what is the highest value activity I can do today? That often looks like vision casting, strategic planning, culture development, team leadership, and decision making under pressure. These aren't always satisfying tasks. You don't always get a dopamine hit from clarifying a 5-year vision or recalibrating your team structure. But those are the decisions that determine whether your business survives or thrives. Stepping into CEO thinking also means owning every part of the business, even the parts you don't like or don't fully understand yet. An employee mentality says, that's not my department. A CEO mentality says, if it's not working, I'm responsible for fixing it. That level of ownership is non-negotiable. It means looking at your financials, your marketing, your customer experience, your people, and asking, is this aligned with where we're going? And if it's not, being willing to change it, to invest in it, or to delegate it with excellence. Delegation is not abdication. CEO thinking doesn't mean doing everything. It means making sure everything gets done to the standard that aligns with your vision. Another massive difference between employee and CEO thinking is how decisions are made. Employees tend to wait for permission. CEO move with clarity. If something needs to happen, they don't stall, second, guess, or seek endless reassurance. They evaluate risk, make a decision, and move. They trust their ability to course correct. They're not emotionally attached to being right. They're committed to getting it right. That agility and decisiveness is what keeps a business alive and growing, especially in fast-changing markets. A CEO who hesitates out of fear will lose momentum. A CEO who leads through clarity, even when the path is uncertain, will always be a step ahead. Leadership development is also a key piece of the CEO mindset. An employee thinks about how to do the work. A CEO thinks about who can do the work and how to develop them to do it better than they could themselves. That shift is everything. You cannot grow a business if you're the most capable person in every seat. Your goal is to build leaders who build the business with you. That takes investment. It takes vision. It takes communication, feedback, accountability, and clarity. A CEO is obsessed with empowering their team to win because they know their personal growth will always be the business's growth cap. One of the most uncomfortable but essential shifts in developing a business mind is learning to see time differently. Employees often work for the weekend. They trade hours for dollars. They clock in, clock out, and wait for permission to evolve. A CEO sees time as their most valuable currency. They're ruthless with it. They protect it from distractions. They know that every hour spent on something misaligned is a step away from their goals. They audit their time not just for productivity, but for impact. They schedule their days around results, not reactions. They know that if their calendar is full of low-value tasks, they're not thinking like a CEO. They're thinking like a manager. Most importantly, a CEO mindset is about identity. It's not just about thinking differently. It's about becoming a different kind of person. Someone who doesn't just participate in business but owns the outcomes. Someone who shows up with clarity, confidence, and resilience. Someone who is building something that lasts and knows that the foundation starts with their thinking. The greatest businesses aren't built by people who just hustle harder. They're built by leaders who learn to think at the next level. If you want to scale your business, the first thing you need to scale is your mindset. And that starts with deciding today that you're not just here to do the work, you're here to lead the vision, making data-driven decisions instead of emotion-driven ones is the core of sustainable leadership. Emotions are powerful, and as humans, we all feel them. We feel excitement, fear, doubt, frustration, pride. But if those emotions become the engine of our business decisions, we're building on a foundation of volatility. Emotion tells you what feels urgent. Data tells you what's actually important. When leaders start choosing based on feelings instead of facts, they stop running a business and start running on instinct. And instinct without insight can cost you time, money, talent, and trust. A business mind understands that every decision has a cost, and the only way to measure whether that cost is worth it is to know the numbers behind it. This doesn't mean you become robotic or stop caring. It means you care enough about the mission, the team, and the outcome to lead with clarity instead of chaos. When you lead from emotion, you're reactive. You let a bad sales day ruin your week. You let a team member's attitude determine your energy. You let fear stop you from launching. But data-driven leadership is proactive. You look at the trends. You analyze what's really going on. You make changes based on patterns, not panic. Data gives you the ability to evaluate performance objectively, instead of saying, I think we're doing well. You say we're up 12% month in new leads, but conversion is down 8%, and our close rate on discovery calls dropped from 40% to 29%. Let's dig into why. That is clarity, that is power. Now, you're not just feeling frustrated about sales. You're diagnosing the issue. Maybe your messaging shifted. Maybe a team member needs more training. Maybe the leads are coming in colder than usual. Whatever the case, you're solving a real problem, not reacting to a feeling. And when you lead this way, your team trusts you more because your decisions are consistent, not erratic. When your decisions are emotional, people never know what to expect. You might praise a win today and then tear it apart tomorrow because your mood changed. But when your leadership is rooted in data, your team knows the rules. They know what success looks like. They know what metrics matter. And they know you're not just leading from your gut. You're leading from a plan. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to set clear expectations and hold people to them. You're not swayed by excuses or flattery. You're focused on outcomes. This shift to data-driven thinking also helps you hold yourself accountable. It's easy to believe you're working hard, showing up, and giving it your all. But what do the numbers say? Are you hitting your revenue targets? Are your marketing campaigns performing? Is your client retention rate increasing? Are your margins healthy? If not, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you need to adjust, but you can't adjust what you won't measure. You can't improve what you're not tracking. A real business mind tracks the numbers weekly, sometimes daily. Not just financials, but performance metrics across the board, team output, sales activity, customer satisfaction, operational efficiency. You become obsessed with clarity, not control. And here's something a lot of leaders don't want to admit. Making decisions based on feelings feels easier in the moment. It's more comfortable to say, I just don't feel like this is working, than to pull the report and analyze why. It's more comfortable to go with your gut than to slow down and ask, what does the data say? But comfort won't build a legacy. Comfort won't scale your company. Precision will, and precision comes from information, not impulse. This is especially important when emotions are high. During a launch, a hiring decision, a crisis, or a pivot. That's when your mind wants to race. It wants to make snap calls. It wants to protect you from discomfort. But that's when you slow down, you breathe, you look at the numbers, you ask, what do I actually know to be true right now? You separate facts from fears. You clarify the objective. You outline your options. And then you choose, not from panic, but from perspective. That is business leadership. That is decision making that lasts. You also create a culture of responsibility when you lead this way. When your team sees that performance is measured clearly and fairly, they take more ownership. They stop making excuses and start looking at their own metrics. They stop playing the blame game and start asking, what do I need to change? Because they know you're not judging them, you're leading them. You're helping them grow with data as the guide, not guilt. You coach with clarity. You celebrate with specificity. You correct with facts, not frustration. And that kind of leadership scales. A data-driven mindset doesn't eliminate intuition. It enhances it. When you combine strong instincts with strong insights, you become unstoppable. You're not leading from fear or fantasy. You're leading from reality. You're not hoping things work. You're making them work, one informed decision at a time. That's the kind of thinking that separates struggling leaders from strategic ones. That's the kind of thinking that builds businesses that last. Because when emotion flares and challenges arise and uncertainty creeps in, you don't crumble. You check the numbers, adjust the plan, and move forward with confidence. That's how real CEOs think. That's how winning businesses grow. Thinking long-term while acting with urgency is one of the greatest distinctions between people who dream about building successful businesses and those who actually do it. Most people are trapped in either short-term thinking with frantic action or long-term dreaming with no consistent execution. But the real builders, the CEO, the entrepreneurs, the high performers, they live in the tension between both. They understand that vision without movement is fantasy and action without purpose is chaos. It's not enough to have big goals. You have to show up today and take steps that align with the future you're creating, not the comfort you're clinging to. A business mind looks 5, 10, even 20 years into the future and makes decisions from that perspective. You're not reacting to what happened this week. You're building toward what needs to exist in 5 years. But here's the key. You can't wait for 5 years to move like the leader you'll need to be then. You have to start behaving like that leader right now. You have to make decisions like that CEO right now, because long-term thinking doesn't mean slow action. It means strategic action. It means knowing where you're going and then refusing to waste a single day drifting from it. So many people confuse patience with procrastination. They tell themselves they're thinking long-term when really they're just avoiding short-term discomfort. They delay launching, they delay hiring, they delay hard conversations, all in the name of waiting for the right time. But the business mind knows that the right time isn't found, it's created. And it's created by moving with urgency, not panic, not rushing, not burn, out level grind, but urgency. A deep, focused commitment to making progress now, not later. Because every day you delay aligned action is a day your future business doesn't get built. If your dream is big, your pace has to match it. And that doesn't mean doing everything at once. It means doing the right things consistently. It means getting clear on your priorities, your targets, and your capacity. Then it means protecting your time from distractions and excuses. You don't waste hours tweaking things that don't matter. You don't sit in indecision for days. You move, you test, you gather data, you course correct, and you do it all with the understanding that you're building something bigger than today's to-do list. That balance of long-term vision and short-term execution is the heartbeat of sustainable success. This mindset shift also impacts how you build your team. When you think long-term, you don't hire just for today's needs. You hire for the business you're becoming. You don't create systems that barely hold together. You build processes that can scale. But again, this isn't a reason to stall. Acting with urgency means building the team you need as fast as possible without compromising the quality or culture you want. You're not hiring just to get help. You're hiring because you know that without the right people in the right seats, your vision stays stuck on paper. Urgency also shows up in how you handle problems. A short-term thinker might avoid confrontation, patch over cracks, or hope things will just fix themselves. But long Term leaders know that every unresolved issue compounds. If you don't deal with it now, it costs you more later, in time, in trust, in profit. So you have the hard conversation today, you fix the broken system today, you coach the underperforming team member today, because every delay weakens your foundation, and a weak foundation can't support a big vision. At the same time, thinking long term helps you stay calm in the chaos. It gives you perspective. When a launch underperforms or a team member quits, you don't spiral, you zoom out, you ask, what does this mean in the context of the next 5 years? You don't overreact to every fluctuation because you're not building for a quick win. You're building for lasting growth. That stability allows you to lead with confidence. You're not chasing quick fixes. You're crafting a company, you're building something that lasts, and that kind of leadership inspires everyone around you. One of the biggest challenges in balancing long-term vision with short-term urgency is staying out of the comparison trap. It's easy to look at someone else's success and think you're behind, but a business mind knows that real success isn't about being fast, it's about being aligned. You don't need to build someone else's version of success. You need to build yours, and that means honoring your timeline, your values, and your mission, while still pushing forward with focused, consistent effort every single day. You move fast, but you move asterisk on purpose. Asterisk, ultimately, the people who win in business are the ones who understand that momentum and mastery aren't mutually exclusive. You can think like a visionary and move like a tactician. You can build with patience and still operate with urgency. That's what great leaders do. They don't wait for the future. They bring it closer by what they do today, and they don't let the pressure of speed sabotage the power of intention. They know where they're going, they know why it matters, and they work every day like the business depends on them, because it does. Understanding the numbers in your business is not just a finance department responsibility, it's a CEO requirement. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. That might sound harsh, but it's the truth. You can have passion, vision, charisma, and a killer product, but if you don't have a deep understanding of your financials, you are flying blind. You might be growing on the surface and bleeding underneath. You might be celebrating sales while profits quietly disappear. A business mind knows that real control, real power, and real scalability begin with financial literacy. This doesn't mean you have to be an accountant. It means you have to be a leader who treats money like data, not drama. Most people avoid numbers because they're uncomfortable with what they might find. They'd rather guess than know, but leadership is about facing the truth, not avoiding it. The truth lives in your financial reports. It lives in your revenue trends, your gross margin, your burn rate, your customer acquisition cost, your lifetime customer value, your profit margins, and your cash flow. If you don't know those things, how can you make strategic decisions? How can you hire, scale, market, price? When you understand your numbers, you shift from hoping to planning. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, what needs to be true for this investment to deliver ROI? Many early entrepreneurs focus only on top-line revenue because that's what looks impressive. It's what people post about. We made $100K this month. But that doesn't mean anything without the context of expenses, margins, and profit. You can generate $1 million in sales and still be broke. Revenue is not the measure of business health. Profit is. And sustainable profit requires precision. What are your fixed costs? What are your variable expenses? Where are you overspending? Where are you underinvesting? These questions are not optional. They are essential. When you understand your numbers, you make better decisions faster. You don't guess how your launch performed, you analyze. You don't hope a hire will work out. You budget for their salary, onboard them strategically, and track their productivity against ROI. You don't rely on gut feelings about marketing. You measure click-through rates, conversion rates, and customer lifetime value. The numbers tell a story, and as a CEO, you need to be fluent in that language, not just reading reports once a month, but using data to guide daily priorities. Financial fluency also builds confidence. You stop operating from scarcity and start operating from clarity. You know where your business stands, you know where the risks are, you know what you can invest in. That gives you the power to scale intelligently. It gives you the power to say yes to growth opportunities and no to distractions. It protects you from overhiring, underpricing, and overspending. It keeps you grounded in reality when emotions run high. Because the truth is, business can be an emotional roller coaster, but numbers keep you focused on facts. Being good with money also means being disciplined. It means not spending based on how you feel, but on what the business needs. It means resisting the urge to make ego-driven purchases that look good but don't move the needle. It means managing cash flow so you can weather slow months without panic. It means saving for taxes, investing in infrastructure, and paying yourself consistently. It's not glamorous, but it's what turns a hustle into a company. Financial discipline creates freedom. It gives you options. It buys you time. It sets the foundation for legacy, level impact. This kind of mindset also sets the tone for your team. When your people see that the business runs on data, not drama, they follow suit. They begin to see the value of outcomes over effort. They become more focused on results. They understand why budget matters. They respect your decisions because they're not random. They're rooted in strategy. Culture shifts when leadership models clarity, and clarity starts with knowing your numbers. It's okay if financials intimidate you at first. It's okay if you didn't learn this growing up or you've avoided it for too long, but that ends today. The moment you decide to stop outsourcing your understanding of money is the moment you become a real CEO. You can get support. You can hire a bookkeeper, a CFO, or a financial coach. But you cannot check out. You must engage. You must ask questions. You must learn how to read a P/L, how to analyze a balance sheet, how to build a forecast. You don't need to do the math, but you need to understand what the math means, because once you do, everything changes. You make decisions with speed and certainty. You stop leaking money in hidden areas. You start pricing for profit. You invest in what works and cut what doesn't. You scale with sustainability instead of desperation. You stop reacting to money and start directing it. And that is when you shift from being a doer to being a leader. That's when you become someone who doesn't just build something big, but something that lasts, because no matter how creative, passionate, or hardworking you are, the business lives or dies on the numbers. Know them, own them, use them. That's what it means to think like a CEO. Being a decision maker, not a bottleneck, is one of the most important shifts any entrepreneur or leader has to make to truly grow a business. It's easy in the beginning to think that being involved in every single detail is a strength. It feels responsible. It feels like you're proving your commitment. You want things to be done well, and you believe that no one can care as much as you do. But what starts as dedication can quickly become dysfunction. Because if everything has to go through you, your business isn't scaling, it's stalling. And what's even more dangerous is that, over time, you become the very thing you once feared, the obstacle to growth. You cannot build something sustainable if you are the final stop for every decision. Being a real CEO means empowering others to make calls, take ownership, and move forward without your constant approval. It means creating a culture where progress isn't dependent on your availability, because if your team has to wait for your sign-off on every task, then your business only moves as fast as your calendar. That's not leadership, that's control, and control isn't scalable. A bottleneck isn't always about micromanagement. It's often about fear. Fear that someone else will mess it up. Fear that your reputation is on the line. Fear that you'll lose quality, but here's what's true. If you don't allow people to make decisions, they'll never grow into the kind of team you say you want. You'll always have a group of task takers instead of problem solvers. You'll always be surrounded by people who wait instead of initiate, and that's exhausting for you and for them. True leadership is about building decision makers. It's about creating clarity so people know what success looks like. When your team has clear metrics, clear expectations, and the permission to act, they rise. They start thinking like owners. They start solving problems without waiting for you to notice them. And yes, at first, they'll make mistakes. But mistakes are not the enemy, dependency is. You cannot grow a business where the team is dependent on your presence to function. That's not a business, that's a bottleneck disguised as leadership. The only way to shift from bottleneck to builder is to delegate outcomes, not just tasks. Delegating tasks keeps you in the loop. Delegating outcomes transfers ownership. When you say, I want you to manage this project and hit this result by this date, you're no longer managing every detail, you're managing the person. And that person is managing the process. That is how scale happens. That is how teams evolve. Because now, instead of being the only brain in the room, you've got a room full of empowered, thinking people who know how to drive things forward. And if the idea of letting go scares you, good, it should, because leadership isn't about comfort, it's about growth. You grow when you let go. You grow when you teach instead of fix. You grow when you stop being the hero and start building heroes. That means creating systems, documenting processes, setting deadlines, and following up with coaching, not control. It means building a business that doesn't just survive without you for a day, but thrives without you in the weeds. You become the visionary, not the validator. This doesn't mean you stop caring or stop being involved. It means you get strategic about where your time and decisions are most valuable. Your brain is meant for the highest leverage problems. It's meant for vision, direction, culture, and cash flow. It's not meant for constant fire drills and inbox babysitting. Every moment you spend solving a problem someone else could solve is a moment you're not doing the real work of leading. And the longer you stay in the weeds, the more your team believes they need you in the weeds. That belief becomes a habit, and that habit kills momentum, so the shift starts with you. You have to redefine what being a strong leader means. It's not about knowing everything. It's about building people who can figure things out. It's not about being available 24/7. It's about being so clear, so consistent, and so empowering that your absence doesn't stop progress. You set the tone by setting the standard. This is the result I expect. These are the tools you can use. These are the boundaries. Now go, make it happen. And when they come to you for answers, resist the urge to fix. Ask questions, coach them through the process, help them find their own solutions, because every time you solve it for them, you reinforce the idea that they can't lead without you. But when you coach them to solve it themselves, you create capacity in your company. You create speed, you create scale, because now you're not the bottleneck, you're the builder. This kind of leadership isn't always flashy. It's not the kind that gets applause or shows up on social media. But it's the kind that builds businesses that last, businesses that grow past one person, businesses that don't crumble when you take a week off, businesses where leaders are grown, not just followed. That's the real work, and it's hard, but it's worth it. Because the moment you stop being the bottleneck is the moment your business starts to breathe. And from that breath, it begins to grow. Not just because of you, but because of the people you've empowered to build alongside you.